Welcome back to Eternal Weekend 2023. I'm Luke Scott Vargas here with Stephen Menendian. We just got you round five action and we're heading into round six. Before we do that, of course, we want to thank our sponsors. We've got Card Titan, who's offering a 10% off code, Eternal Weekend 2023. And of course, Card Titan puts on the whole shebang. So huge thanks to them for putting on the tournament, the coverage, everything else you need. And GameGenic. You can use code Eternal Weekend 2023 for 10% off your order there as well for all the supplies you need. All right, we are going right to the action. We've got Toast on Mono Red, toasting their opponents here. At 5-0, battling against Duke Vicho on Sultai Midrange. And opening with, a Beta Underground Sea into a Beta Ancestral Recall. That is style. So,
very nice.
Opening on turn one Ancestral. Oh, looks like it was on the upkeep of Toast's upkeep, so you don't have to discard.
Now, there's always the possibility when you're playing these red decks with Simian Spirit Guide that they could respond with Simian Spirit Guide Pyroblast even on the draw. But they probably don't have I don't think they have Pyroblast or REB main deck. But being on, especially when you're playing these mono red hate decks, I call them mono red hate, being on the play is really important. And you can see why right there, right? Like, wow, yeah, again, the turn one Magus is really the goal most of the time. Either that or turn one Mill Rod, but I think the Magus is probably really what you want to hit. This would have prevented Duke from even playing the Ancestral if they couldn't find a basic island.
And it looks like Duke has Force of Will, but either drew it for their turn or chose not to force the Magus or didn't have the second blue card. We'll find out. That's a Soul Ring down there, by the way, casting Goblin Rabblemaster. And I mean, this game's going to be over quickly. Rabblemaster does one thing well, and that's end games.
And Duke just sitting there on two mountains.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty tough.
Let's see what else Duke has.
So looking at Duke's deck list, they've got one Forest as basics, and then, of course, Lotus, Mox Emerald, Mox Jet, Mox Sapphire. But it looks like the Ancestral didn't find that, and we're getting to the point where there's just not a whole lot that they'll be able to do to realistically come back. The Rabblemaster this turn, I mean, we're talking 10 damage right now. 2 Goblins, a 4/2 Rabblemaster, and a Magus the Moon. This gives you one turn to do something, and you haven't been able to cast anything the previous 3 turns. Fabled the Mirror Breaker prompts a concession, but yeah, the game was pretty much over already. And an easy victory for Toast on Mono Red. I mean, that is what the deck is indeed trying to do.
As powerful as Ancestral is, there's just trumps, and then there's just immense forms of advantage. And, there's just no greater trump on turn one in many cases than these Blood Moon effects. I mean, the thing is, in some sense, the Magus was more important there because if this was a Blood Moon, it could have been answered with a disenchant effect. But there's really just nothing. I think, yeah, he has Force of Vigors, 4 Force of Vigors main deck. Duke does. So.
And that can kill Blood Moon. Certainly can't kill Magus the Moon, though.
Exactly. Yep. That's okay. So sideboarding looks like not a lot to bring in against Mono Red Prison. I don't know what you see. Maybe the Tabernacles for the Goblin.
Yeah, I don't think that's a very effective way, especially since the red deck usually ends up with like an extra Ancient Tomb or City of Traders just after they've cast their first spells. You have Fatal Push that can sometimes kill something. You've got Abrupt Decay. The issue is you can't cast these a lot of the time because your mana is just getting messed with. So
you need Dismember, which he does not have.
Yeah, this Sultai midrange deck is kind of exactly the deck that the mono red deck wants to play against. It's got a lot of non-basics, hard to cast cards. It's got a bunch of like collector oofs and spell pierces and force of negations, which really aren't that good if you're just getting attacked by Rabble Masters and Magus the Moon.
And it has a slow clock on top of all of that. So,
and the mono red deck, by the way, this is the second mono red deck we've seen today that is unpowered. So trying to accelerate with Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, City of Traders, and Ancient Tomb, but no Mox Ruby, no Black Lotus. And look, if you don't have or choose not to play cards like Black Lotus and Mox Ruby, well, having cards like Null Rod and Chalice of the Void do a pretty good job of leveling the playing field.
Indeed. quite effectively. Oh boy.
So going
So
into game two here, being on the draw is the weakest part of the mono red decks because they have no free spells, like no forces or anything like that, and the opponent can get first use their artifacts or lands before getting hit by Blood Moon or Null Rod. But even if Toast loses this game, they get to be on the play for game three, which is obviously a huge advantage. And the Sultai deck is just not that well positioned against this mono red deck from what we've seen.
we didn't really talk much about Toast's sideboard, but Toast can bring in a pair of Red Element Blast, Pyroblast, and potentially Pyrokinesis, which could be important. Pyrokinesis can still get at Okos.
Yeah, Pyrokinesis is not a bad one with 4 Furies in the main deck as well. That it's funny how much the pitch elementals have transformed Vintage, but again, free spells are few and far between, and the ones that do get printed tend to find their way into the most powerful formats. All right. I mean, at the very least, we see Eternal and Rabblemaster. Oh, with the red Force of Will here. Never mind. On the draw, you do have Force of Will, like you mentioned before. Simian Spirit Guide into Red Blast. So turn one Misty, but no other play. And now we're going to lead on Chrome Mox. Let's see where this takes us. Imprint Fury and cast Rabblemaster. And you're kind of hoping that Duke has a Force of Will.
He's thinking about it.
Because you get to kind of snap them off with your blast if that is the case. All right, there's the Force of Will pitching Oko.
You'd love to see that. Boom. Force back.
The red Force of Will, Force of Ape there with a Simian Spirit Guide pitching for Red Blast. Rabblemaster makes a token, and this game's on its way to being over already. I mean, look, if Duke casts like a turn 2 Abrupt Decay or Fatal Push, that's one thing. But if not, it's going to be pretty hard for you to stand up to Rabblemaster. I guess this Collector Oof can block a token and can kind of mitigate things a little bit, but you're still at a pretty big disadvantage.
Yeah, the damage is going to come quick and fast, as you pointed out. It's like almost Monastery Mentor math. Also, we have a little bit of self-inflicted damage here from the fetch.
Oh, and second Rabblemaster. Now you're definitely attacking with the first Rabblemaster here, because the Oof can trade with the 5/2. You get 3 points in through, and then next turn you have another Rabblemaster plus 4 goblins. Rabblemaster, that's 10 points of damage. Rabblemaster just goes really hard.
Now I'm just wondering how good these Magus decks are against the Oath opponents.
My guess is they'll struggle with Oath because Oath operates on a very low land count. They just need 2 mana to cast their Oath, and also has a really effective anti-creature strategy in Oath of Druids. So I think that historically Oath has been pretty good against these kinds of decks, whether it's workshops or mono red. And that'll do it.
That's fast.
Toast lives up to their name and toasts their opponent in like 4 turns combined or something like that. Turn 1 Rabblemaster with Force backup, as in, Simian Spirit Guide Red Blast. Into turn 2 Rabblemaster. That was it. That's the whole game.
6-0. 6-0 in a 9-round tournament. So one more win and then draw in the top 8.
Yeah, and that could be one of the few times an unpowered deck makes top 8. It's happened before. Will happen again, maybe in the hands of Toast. We'll see. All right, looks like we've got our next matchup here. We've got Jewel Paradoxical Outcome. So you're using Coveted Jewel, comes to play, taps to add 3 mana of any color, and draws you 3 cards. So you're playing Workshops and blue cards, which is a funny combination, which leads to this turn 1 Trinisphere as Omri Goldberg here on Doomsday. You got to force the turn 1 Trinisphere. That's just mandatory.
Absolutely. One of the most devastating plays a Doomsday player could possibly suffer under. It's so difficult to win.
And these players both at 4-1, playing for the 5-1 here. Get Underground Sea for Preordained. The one saving grace here is You're playing against a workshop deck that actually doesn't typically play a lot of wastelands. Yeah, this deck's not playing
Yeah.
any. I do love it though. 4 copies of the One Ring, 4 copies of Coveted Jewel, 4 copies of Grim Monolith.
And Phyrexian Metamorph.
Yep, Metamorph into Coveted Jewel is just 0 mana, 2 life, 3 cards,
It's pretty bonkers.
and sets up a really sick paradoxical outcome.
We'll do it all again.
All right, there goes an island, and we're playing the One Ring here. So the only thing that's awkward about the One Ring against Doomsday is actually, despite having protection from everything, it doesn't stop you from
Does
losing
it
to Thassa's Oracle.
exactly? It does not protect you in the most important way. So we'll see. Omri has a little window of opportunity here, right? If Omri can go Dark Ritual, Doomsday, and then Gush, or peek into Gush. Oh my God. Okay, that appears to be what's happening.
I think that's a Necropotence, and
Oh
Curran did have a Force of Will. So Workshop and Force of Will fighting side by side is not the typical thing to see.
no,
Cycling Street Wraith in response, looking for additional disruption.
did
Cycling
not
another
yield.
Street Wraith, looking for disruption.
Force of Will, please. Oh no, Force of Will with Mishra's Workshop decks just is not fair. But I guess that's how Workshop has managed to survive the metagame in this particular moment. That would have been so much fun to see Necropotence.
Yeah, Necro's an awesome card. I love seeing it go off. Omri's hand is now just Dark Ritual, Peak, and Preordain, it looks like.
Jordan.
So if Preordain can find another Doomsday,
Uh,
then, or a
yes,
Doomsday
exactly.
rather, then we might end up seeing a kill on the next turn. Because Curran's down to just 2 cards in hand. Of course, is going to draw 3 cards this turn at least. One off the
Yeah,
draw step, 2 off the ring. So we could see Curran winning the game this turn too with Time Vault Key if they draw the right sequence of cards.
here it is. We've seen both players throw haymakers. They've just been answered with Force of Will. Trinisphere, Force. Necropotence, Force. Let the ring in. Did not get there. Did not get there. Had the mana to Paradoxical. Would have, presumably, if they had it.
Yeah, I do think that Curran is in great shape though, because they have a Force of Will. They found that Mox Pearl, so now their Opal's
Mm.
on. Using Ancient Tomb, they can hard cast Force of Will, which it's unclear if Omri can even go off this turn. It doesn't look like they are if you're starting the turn with Ponder. But even if they did, you have Force of Will, and every turn that goes on, Curran's chances of winning skyrocket, because next turn the One Ring is going to tap to draw 3 cards. It's hard to
It's
imagine that's not going to be enough to win the game.
yeah, it's getting pretty gross. Okay, peek. Now he's gonna see what's there. Yeah. Yeah, you can counter my spells. That's not fair. Okay. I guess I have to pass. Draw 4 cards. We should expect a paradoxical here or something like. I think I
Well,
see a
it
time
doesn't look
vault.
like we necessarily have it. We saw Mana Vault, but we saw another Force of Will. So if Curran can just find Force of Will every turn, that also does the trick. This looks like a Mystic Forge, though. So
Oh,
now
brother.
Curran can look at their top card at any point, can play artifacts and colorless spells off the top, and can tap the Mystic Forge, pay a life to exile the top card if it's not good. But I already see what it looks like, double Force of Will, potentially with a blue card, which comes pretty close to locking up the game.
Yeah, and we should also mention Mystic Forge is super restricted in Vintage. It was restricted like I think the first opportunity it could be. It's the artifact necropotence. Oh boy.
Well, there's Time Vault, so at this point, a key would be lethal. And Phyrexian Metamorph, I think, might be paying double duty here because Metamorph can pitch to
Yes.
Force of Will if there is one. I have a hard time imagining that Curran would lose because it looks like, yeah, he does have Metamorph, Force. I guess he
He's
can
got
only
double.
hard cast one of the forces given the way he's tapped down.
All right, Dark Ritual. This is it. Doomsday. Omri's last chance is met with Force of Will.
So currently, there's Ritual, Doomsday, Force. He could Flusterstorm for 4, but he could actually pay with Mana Vault.
You're right. That's what he was just realizing. Oh well. He's like, I have enough, right? I have enough, right? How many storm did you play? Let's go over it again. One, two, three, four.
And you've got Mox Opal and Mana Vault there to pay for.
Yep.
And that'll bin those cards. And now it's almost impossible that Curran doesn't win this turn. I mean,
This is going to be an absolutely disgusting vintage turn in the best sense of the word disgusting.
I mean, you're starting the turn with a ring that can tap to draw 4 cards. You have Mystic Forge, so yeah, you get to play Moxes for free for some amount of time. Ancestral, PO, Coveted Jewel. Yeah, okay. This is extremely over.
And yet highly entertaining at the same time.
Oh yeah, and you have Mystic Forge in between every turn. Oh, he's got Mental Misstep for the Ancestral. Got him.
The world is your oyster. You just have to decide what you want to nibble into first. So
yeah, going down to 6 here off of the Ancient Tomb for a Coveted Jewel. And yeah, I think Omri, it makes sense. You at this point, you're definitely not winning this game. Omri also probably didn't have the ability to even do anything the next turn anyway. So game 1 here in the favor of Mono Blue Shops, which post board can bring in like a Mind Break Trap.
Yeah, he's got. Go ahead.
I was gonna say could consider Defense Grid to protect his own stuff, but then it makes your counters weaker against a faster combo deck. So that seems a little dubious.
I like the sideboard Omri has. I like the Steel Sabotage. Blue can stop some of these key developmental cards. What else do you see might bring it? Certainly more Force and Negation.
Yeah, these are some strong options here. And I think post board it probably improves more for Doomsday is my guess, because the mono blue deck doesn't have that much to bring in. But on the other hand, there's not that much that Doomsday really wants to cut either.
Yeah.
Like, you're playing against an artifact spell deck, so your cards that are good against artifacts and your cards that are good against spells are both good, and that makes things a little tough because like everything is going to be good against one of those 2 cards.
I guess it's sort of like marginal optimization, right? You're just like
Current mulliganing here where Omri looks satisfied with their hand.
Interesting to note that the shop player has a Argentum Masticore in the sideboard.
Yeah.
Not for this matchup, of course, but cool card. Wow. That is quite an opening hand. Pretty busted. Got
double Metamorph, Force, and then a bunch of mana, including Black Lotus. This is a hand that if Curran draws a Coveted Jewel on turn 1, might just like not win, but like just go completely nuts on turn 1, because you go 2 Monolith Lotus, cast Jewel, draw 3, cast Metamorph, draw 3. If you didn't have to use the Force pitching the other Metamorph, you cast a second Metamorph. And at that point, you've drawn 9 cards. You could probably find a way to win, or at least do something. All right, I'm hoping for Coveted Jewel here. This would be such a sweet turn 1.
Oh, please. I love these snowball effects in Vintage, and this deck is just full of the snowball.
Okay. Mitchell's Workshop was the draw instead.
We're still live for this in future turns. Yeah.
Totally. And Workshop means, you don't take damage off Tomb. Plus, even though you're giving Omri the information here, you now have the ability to cast Force of Will by spending mana instead of pitching a Metamorph if you want.
True. Very good point.
What Curran doesn't know is that Omri's, I don't think, have any other lands in hand and is casting Ponder on turn 1 after leaving up Steel Sabotage the turn before.
Yes. He I mean, I can't blame him for holding it up, right? Like, I mean, just the Steel Sabotage would have prevented that sequence from happening if he can back it up.
So this is a
This is
Ponder
a
Shuffle.
shuffle.
I don't see is tapped. I'm sure they'll get to that. That means
Yeah.
it could just not play a land this turn.
Oh my
Cycle Street
goodness.
Wraith.
All right, one more chance. Well, another chance.
Oh, and no lands.
No.
It's just gonna pass
Devastating.
the turn.
This is
So
the turn. Come on, Jewel.
yeah, Curran's got the opportunity here. And land go. The problem for Curran, though, is Omri missed a land drop last turn, but it's got a bunch of cantrips in hand, at least one. It's going to be hard for that to happen too many more times.
I don't blame Omri for playing the Ponder instead of Preordain, but there is an argument for Preordain first. What's going on here? I see. Oh, he's just discarding. He's keeping up. Interesting.
Oh
Wow.
man, this is okay. So he's keeping up. He discarded Time Walk and instead left up Steel Sabotage and now is vamping. Curran, I think, makes the right choice. You can't force of will the vamp. That's just not a way to win the game. So is he
Yeah.
going to vamp for a land or is he going to vamp for like a Necropotence or something to play? Maybe a Lotus. I don't know.
It just seems like your chance of finding a land had to be pretty good if you had preordained and made a, but I guess this guarantees, as you were saying, probably Black Lotus just win here, right? Because you have Dark
Or try
Ritual.
to.
Yeah, try to.
So one thing to keep in mind is Omri knows that Curran's got a Force of Will in hand, so any plan he makes, it's going to be with that in mind.
So I'm trying to think, if I were in the Doomsday position here, what would I be trying to do given that? Your point is really well taken. Like, you have a little bit of time. Yeah, there's the Lotus that we predicted. Looks like he's just going for it.
Oh, he's going to go for the Thassa's Oracle.
And respond with the Demonic Consultation for the win. Yes.
Love it.
Force. And he has the hard cast Force. No, you're right. That's it. It's Force. Oh my God, it's countered. Yeah. It's countered. You can't respond. He doesn't have a Force to protect it.
This is a confusing line to me
Very.
because Omri did cast Gitaxian Probe on turn when we saw that. So he knew that Curran had a Force in hand. So if he knew this was going to happen, I guess but baiting the Force out with those two cards is pretty costly, and you lose your Lotus and your Vamp. So I guess he's going to go for Ritual Doomsday next turn?
Even worse than that, the sequence that brought you to the Lotus cost you land drop, and it cost you basically your whole turn.
Oh, but still has Force of Negation, pitching that Steel Sabotage. The first turn he's had Steel Sabotage down, Curran drew the Coveted Jewel. So I'm sad that we're not going to see Coveted Jewel go hard unless, wait, does he have another Force of Will? Oh, I think he's got to. I mean, what else would you be doing right here? Oh, he's got Mindbreak Trap, Hardcast Mindbreak Trap. We know the last card in Curran's hand is a Phyrexian Metamorph.
Yes, it's happening, Luis. It's happening.
Oh, we're doing it. Okay, he drew a bunch of Moxes. So really,
that's all you need. Just pay one more land, one more mana. We're there.
Yeah, paradoxical outcome in the game is just over.
Metamorph.
Yeah, it looks like a Metamorph.
Boom. We're there. Come on.
1, 2, 3. Is that Ancestral Time Hawk Force of Will?
Hello.
Ancestral 1, 2, 3.
I think I just saw Academy.
So Academy actually lets you cast Seagate Restoration, which is a really funny card in this deck because it's basically like a Lorien Revealed. It's like a land that pitches to Force of Will. But in this case, you actually have enough blue or cards in your deck and blue mana to just cast it.
To do the full. I think this is the second time I've ever seen that cast. Actually cast.
All right, there goes Mox Opal. I mean, the Academy's currently tapping for like 7 mana.
At least.
Yeah, we're probably going to see another thing or two. I mean, when this deck starts going, it goes. Like the snowball is really real.
The snowball is traveling downhill at about 50 miles an hour right now. Depending on this play, okay, it just reached 90.
Unfortunately for us, Omri's had enough, and we'll let Paradoxical Outcome be the end of the game because it was. That's going to draw. That would have drawn Curran like 7 cards plus the 2 Jewel plus Metamorph, 13 cards, and added a ton of mana. And there we go. We've got a winner here. Mono Blue Workshops. What a deck! I think that deck's really funny. I hadn't heard about that deck the first time I played against it. I played against it in a Magic Online league, and my opponent went Workshop, Grim Monolith, Coveted Jewel, Forced My Force. And I'm like,
what is going on here?
Am I getting trolled here? And then of course, it's just a very real deck. But I had never seen it before, and I did not expect a Force of Will and a Workshop in the same deck.
Great matches.
Right. That was a sick match. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with more Vintage. You got Vintage all day here. So thanks for watching, and we'll be right back.
3 more rounds.